Hello there, welcome to Planet Smasher Games. I'm settling down to paint some orcs for Space Gits, and it's been a heck of a 6 weeks here in the studio, so I thought I would tell you what I've been up to. Stick around and I'll fill you in. Hello, welcome to Planet Smasher HQ. I'm busy painting some orcs at the moment. I thought I would use this time to fill you in on what I've been up to over the last 6 weeks. It's been extremely busy. Mostly I have been focused on 2 things. One is the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter, which as of recording, I just sent out all of the digital distributions of the PDFs, and I kicked off the process of doing the physical fulfillment. And boy, have I learnt a few things in the process of doing that, which I'll tell you a bit about. I've also been working very hard on Space Gits. Hang on a sec, I've got Space Gits around here somewhere. Look, here it is. Well, the quick start version anyway. So let me tell you what I have been up to. And in the meantime, I'm going to carry on painting these orcs here. So one thing that I've been working on is the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter. That has gone into the fulfillment phase. So this week I launched 2 things. One, I launched the digital downloads via Itch using the Kickstarter integration that Itch provides. That has not been without its hiccups, but it seems to be mostly working for most people, so that's cool. And I also launched the physical fulfillment through GameFound, which is the pledge manager I'm using. That has been a real sharp learning curve, I'll be honest. It's a powerful platform, and it's got some really fantastic support staff. I've been working with one of the GameFound people who's been very helpful, but there is a lot to learn. It's a complicated platform, and I have made some errors this time round, which I will not make again, which bodes well for the Space Gits Kickstarter, which is coming up shortly, and I will no doubt tell you more about in a mo. So the Crawling Chaos was my first ever Kickstarter, and I launched it for a month as part of Zine Quest 25, and it went great. It went really well. A lot more people backed the game than I was expecting, so that's fantastic. But they also didn't come in such numbers so as to cause me problems. So I got 360 backers in the end, which was perfect. That's a really healthy print run that I can do of the game. I'm going to get it printed locally here in Canterbury. So I can get a bunch of the zines printed up, and as a part of that campaign I was offering physical and digital bundles of the other zines that I released at the tail end of last year. So they're all getting printed up as well. That's fantastic, and it was just awesome to get that learning and also just get that support from everyone. So if you are watching this video and you backed me on Kickstarter, thank you very much. Thank you both for supporting the game design work that I'm doing, but also in advance for putting up with any hiccups as I go through the final process of getting you your games. It is, as I've said, a bit of a learning experience. There we go. That coat was a bit too blue, and now it looks bluey black, which is more what I was going for. As part of the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter, I also was lucky enough to get some kind words from some game design heroes of mine. So Gav Thorpe sent out a message, a post. I guess you can't call them tweets anymore. He sent out a message on Blue Sky saying very nice things about me and urging people to back the game. That was fantastic. Thanks, Gav. I also happened to be running a Kickstarter at the same time as Nathan Pauletta, who was running a Kickstarter, a Zine Quest Kickstarter for his 2nd issue of his RPG game design zine. And I have read the first one and I enjoyed the first one. And Nathan is he's a game designer that I'm really in admiration of. And he had a game design podcast with Will Hindmarsh some years ago now called the Design Games Podcast. And that podcast was very influential on me around the time of Gaslands and A Billion Suns, and I listened to it multiple times all the way through, and it was in no small part responsible or inspiring of the Rule of Carnage podcast. So it was nice to bump into his Kickstarter, and I dropped a hello on there, and he checked out mine and said some nice things about that. So that was awesome as well. And finally, whilst I was at Dragon Meet last November, I sought out Kenneth Haidt, who's an RPG designer that I really respect and think is a super interesting designer. Anyway, I had a chat with him and I showed him the fundamentals of tabletop miniature games design textbook, which he was very interested about. And I got in contact with him during the Kickstarter, and he was kind enough to provide a blurb saying nice things about me and the game. So that was super good. So at one point during the campaign, I was able to release a nice update with kind things being said about the game, which was great. Since the Kickstarter funded, I took a little time to add a couple extra pages to the Crawling Chaos manuscript. In particular, I found during the campaign, I just stumbled across an old notebook which had got some ideas for a make your own mythos baddie sort of random table, which when I discovered it and reread it, I was quite delighted by it. So that has gone in the game now as a last minute addition. Plus, when I was recording the solo playthrough video for the campaign, I realised that I really wished that as I was playing it, I had a solo quick reference thing, because there's a couple of charts that in the normal multiplayer game, you only need the charts a couple of times and mostly during setup. But during solo play, you need to refer to them a little bit more often. So I made a quick reference sheet, and then that in total gave me 4 new pages to expand the game. So that's cool. I'm going to paint his hat brown. Come back to you in a minute. So one thing I changed my mind on during the Kickstarter campaign, and you're not supposed to change your mind on things during Kickstarter campaigns, but one thing that I did was I messed up on the configuration of the postage inside Kickstarter. I was sort of noodling around when I was setting the campaign up, and I set some options as an experiment, and then I left them set in a not correct way when I went live, and at that point it was too late. So the long and the short of it is that I thought that for the Crawling Chaos delivery, I was going to use a lovely company called GameQuest to do my shipping and fulfillment, who I'm very much going to be using for Space Gits. But because the zine I was selling was quite cheap, and honestly GameQuest is a little bit pricey because it's kind of designed for, bigger, meatier board game Kickstarters, I realised during the final tot-up that it wasn't really going to make sense to use an expensive fulfillment company to fulfill these small number of zines that I had. So I've changed my plan, and I'm going to do everything myself through just Royal Mail, which means everyone is paying cheaper postage, which is good. It's a little bit more work for me, but not an enormous amount. So that is how I'm going to go about doing the delivery of the zines to people. And so I'm about to get hundreds of zines printed locally, and then I will stuff them into envelopes and I will send them out to everyone. I didn't realise how much spreadsheet munging was going to be involved in running a Kickstarter, but pretty much everything has involved making some kind of CSV or transforming backer data from one format to another to get everything as I need it to be. So more of that will happen as I interface with the Royal Mail business platform, no doubt. But yeah, so that's the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter. Great learning experience. Still got to get the zines printed and get everything sent once people have provided me with their addresses and paid their postage and possibly some taxes. Lots more learnt there during this process. So if you are a backer for a physical product from the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter, then please check your emails for a link to GameFound, or just look up on the post that I put up recently on the Kickstarter and go along to GameFound and provide your postal address. If you have just backed for digital goods, then you can get all that stuff straight away. Just visit Kickstarter, look at the last backer update that I released. That's got all the details in it. You basically have to click a link over to Itch, which is what I'm using to deliver the PDF files for the game. you need to log in to itch or create an account if you haven't already got an itch account. And that account that you've got needs to have your Kickstarter email address linked, which is something that you can do in the settings, your account settings on itch. But all the details are in the backer update. I'm painting these little pirates, but I haven't actually written a pirate faction for Space Gits. I should probably include a pirates faction. I'm thinking that they won't be pirates. I'm thinking that they will be like cosplayers or reenactment people. Some kind of Space Gits urban twist on this, and I'm not sure what yet. So that's Crawling Chaos. That has been a pretty major focus over the last 2 months. During the campaign, it was actually pretty chill. There wasn't that much to do, apart from write a couple of backer updates and record a video. So that gives me some confidence because I'm going to start the layout for the Space Gits rulebook before the campaign for Space Gits starts, but I probably won't finish it until during the campaign. And the experience of running the Crawling Chaos gives me renewed confidence that I'm going to have plenty of headspace during the campaign to do that creative work. Yeah, so let's talk about Space Gits. There is a lot of news to tell you about Space Gits. So where shall I begin? Well, when I last recorded one of these videos, Space Gits was about 30 pages long. It had some bits and bobs in it, but it wasn't really very developed. So I have been working hard on developing the game. In particular, there were 2 things that I wanted to add that hadn't been tackled yet. One was a much more interesting campaign system, and I wanted something which tackles the perennial problems, things like not having snowballing and having cool effects from actually playing the game. And the second thing was that I wanted to include rules for vehicles, because up until now, Space Gits had been very much an infantry skirmish game. But, you know, I was watching Ash playing Gorka Morka, and I was looking at the Cromlech buggies and stuff, and I just thought, you know what, this game would really be very fun if it had these funny little dice mechanics where you roll the dice and you move towards where the dice physically falls, but those were applied to vehicles. So before Christmas, actually, I had a little idea about how it might work, but I wasn't sure. And so I sat on that idea for a while and I thought about it. And then about 8 weeks ago, I started putting vehicles on the table and pushing them around and sort of play testing how that would work, and came to a fun system that I'm quite pleased with for how vehicles work. Those vehicle rules are available in the new beta version of the game that I have released this week. And it also includes this campaign system. So the campaign system has a couple of cool features. One of the things that I like about it is that it's got an injury system. So if you are down on the ground when the game ends, then you count as injured, and you have to make a toughness check to see if you are seriously injured. And then if you are seriously injured, you have to go to hospital and find out what happens. And you make a couple of subsequent dice rolls, a diagnosis roll to find out which bit of you is hurting. That's essentially a location roll. And then you get to decide whether or not to spend your caps from your stash on private healthcare, or if you just go public. And this is basically to allow people who are losing to make possibly beneficial random rolls on the injury table, but those people who are winning can decide to sacrifice some of their winnings to almost guarantee a positive result. And so the injury tables are all D10, or rather the treatment tables are all D10 tables. And if you go with the free public healthcare, then you just roll a D10 and you get what you get. And normally, like, the first 4 to 6 results on the table are negative, but the higher numbers are positive. But if you pay to go private, then you can make 2 rolls and choose the best. And the reason I've done it that way is that it means that if you get injured in the game and therefore you are potentially on the back foot because maybe you were injured because you were getting hammered and therefore you lost and you didn't get as much loot, it's possible that your injury leads to really quite a cool upgrade, because when you go to see the doc, they might end up putting like an awesome power claw on you, or you get some kind of like gyro stabilized mono wheel and you are better as a result of getting injured. That feels like super space Gitsy as well, that when you are injured, the possibility is that that's a good thing and you get an upgrade as a result. So that's fun. And the second thing is that I created a system where there's a set of checkboxes on the back of your character card, and depending on what you've done during the game, like nicking caps off of people or thumping them in a fight, you get to check off these offences, they're called. And so if you have fired a weapon, for example, then you get to check the discharging a firearm in a public place offence. And the more offences you check off, the more likely you are to gain an attitude. And as your attitude stat improves, that operates as a sort of saving throw for damage, because there isn't a saving throw ordinarily in Space Gits, but your attitude, which is kind of your experience points, turn into a saving throw so that you're tougher on the field. But if you get too much attitude, you become a bit of a belligerent git, and sometimes you just don't show up to the game. So that's a way of having a sort of rubber banding situation where if somebody's getting a more and more powerful gang than the other guy, they suffer the negative effects of their most powerful guys might just not show up, and that will help the other person compete. So if you're interested in checking out either the campaign system or the new vehicle rules, then you can go along to planetsmashergames.itch.io and you can download the beta rulebook, which is now pretty monstrous. It was 32 pages last week, and it is now over 100 pages. And that's a sort of draft layout where I've tried to make it look a bit nice, but it hasn't got like any of the final artwork in, and it is not at all the final layouts because that is yet to be started. But yeah, you'll find loads of new stuff in there. One thing that Space Gits has now that it didn't have 8 weeks ago is tons of special equipment, which I call fancy gear. And the fancy gear is basically, so like I'm painting this orc doc here. He's got a big syringe, for example, and so a big syringe is something that you can pay a cap for when you build your model, and that can be it's a bit of gear called medical equipment, and so that has a little effect in game. And the same is true of lots and lots of bits and bobs. So if they're carrying a gas can, if they've got robot legs, if they look like they're wearing a big hat, all of these things, there are upgrades to apply to your Git. The other thing that I did over these last 8 weeks with Space Gits is and this was, I suppose, triggered by the working on the vehicle system. The vehicle system kind of suggested some models that needed to be much tougher than other models, because obviously the difference between punching a goblin and punching a truck ought to be mechanically distinct. And so I made one change to the core resolution system, which was I introduced a single stat called toughness, which I suppose technically now there are 2 stats because you also have an attitude stat. Oh, technically there's 3. You have a movement stat as well. All right, it's 3 stats: movement, attitude, and toughness. And the toughness system, basically it meant that I can change the way that the dice mechanic works, so that when you roll the dice, the number that it falls on, initially it just had this sort of very simple system where if the dice had rolled even, it would do 1 damage class, and if it rolled odd, it would do a different damage class. And that was fine and dandy, but it was easy enough to switch that around so that the number relates to the toughness. And if you have rolled equal or over their toughness, then you do big damage, and if you roll under their toughness, you do weak damage. And that was neat because some of the weapons do different roll different sizes of dice, and so it makes kind of like the way that A Billion Suns works. It makes big dice basically stronger against tougher enemies, or tougher against all enemies. But if you've got a guy that's toughness 6, he's hard to wound with one of the D6 weapons, but he is more easy to wound with a D10 weapon. So that's cool. So we've got a toughness system in Space Gits now. I also added, using the toughness system, I added some new kinds of Gits. So goblins, they're not quite as tough, and they get a couple of special rules so that you can't equip them with as good equipment. There are gremlins, which are essentially sort of snotlings, little grots, that kind of thing. They're even weaker. There's Norballs, which are very unpredictable. They can move quite quickly, but they are unpredictable in their movement. And Bullorcs, they're tougher. They're kind of your slightly more elite, beefy orc. So if you've got an orc miniature that looks big and beefy, then you can recruit it as a Bullorc, which costs a couple of cans extra and bumps up their both their toughness and gives them the ability to carry two-handed weapons in only one hand, so they can carry more stuff. I expanded the weapon list as well to include a bunch more fun gear. There's probably a little bit more playtesting and work to do on those. In particular, the way that grenades works is terrible and needs to be better. Yeah, so that's all the sort of games design stuff that's been going on with Space Gits. That has been a very productive couple of months of iterating the system. And I shot some videos like during the process to sort of capture the moments of me working on it. But I'll be honest with you, I found it a little bit difficult to record the process of doing Space Gits because a lot of it was me just staring into space, trying to think about all the different ways that the systems could work, and then pushing models around and muttering to myself. So I have recorded some of that muttering, but it didn't make for an awesome video. So hopefully when I am finished with the Space Gits project a bit more completely, I've got lots of useful material to put together into a documentary. So hopefully if I've got time, I can put together a making of documentary, which will be fun because because one thing that worked really well recently on YouTube was the Rad Pirates of the Toxic Sea video, which I've been sat on for ages because it took me a long time to edit. It was big and complicated, and I had a sort of stop-start relationship with that. But once I finally got it finished and posted up, it went great guns, and it's done about 7,000 views, which is much more than I would normally get on a video, certainly much more than I expect to get on this video. And that's cool because it took me a lot of effort and energy, so it was nice that it went well. But it also convinced me that this kind of long form making of behind the scenes thing is probably of interest to people, so I should probably do more of that. And so I've been recording as I go along through the Space Gits process, not quite able to get a coherent video together on the work that I've done over the last couple of months, but there's loads of interesting behind the scenes stuff there, and that should be able to be brought together in some format. So yeah, not promising a making of, but a Space Gits making of documentary does seem like a fun idea. So I showed you the Space Gits quick start guide at the beginning of the video. I wanted to get that done because it's Salute in the UK in a couple of weeks. And I plan to have the Space Gits Kickstarter live and running by the time we go to Salute. And that is a great opportunity for some marketing. And so I have got like 3,000 copies of this Quick Start pamphlet printed up, and they've been sent over to Salute. So hopefully, if you are an attendee at Salute, and you are one of the 3,000 people that they've stuffed it in the bag, then you'll get a Space Gits Quick Start guide. I'll also be handing them out at the booth. That worked quite nicely for Hobgoblin last year, so I'm hoping that that is a good use of a couple of £100 worth of printing and marketing spend. So that will let a bunch of wargamers know about the game at the exact moment that it's possible to go and back it on Kickstarter, and it'll be in the first couple of days that Salute is running, the first couple of days of the Kickstarter. So yeah, here's hoping that that provides a decent bump in the first week of the campaign. I'm really excited about Space Gits because it's a really, really fun game, and I think once people see it, they will be surprised and want to have a go on it because it's so weird and different. And I think it's really exciting because it's got a real immediateness to it that makes it, in the same way that Gaslands is suitable both for experienced miniature gamers looking for something new, but also new miniature gamers looking for something easy to get into and kind of immediate and physical. I think Space Gits has a similar sort of character to it, and I've been getting feedback from people who've shared it with kind of non-miniature wargame peeps, and they are finding it very easy to play and easy to get excited about. And then you don't have to have very many miniatures because it's just kind of 5 models aside. And the miniatures that you need are really like clear and obvious because you need some orcs and you can go crazy making them however you like. So yeah, I have got a good feeling about this. I'm really hopeful. I'm slightly delirious about it because this Kickstarter campaign for Space Gits is it. Like, if this Kickstarter goes well, then I have a business and I can keep making games. And if this Kickstarter does not go well, or heaven forfend if it even fails to fund, then I'm basically out of money and the experiment is over. So no pressure, and in fact, lots of pressure. Now, that pressure 2 years ago probably would have felt unpleasant and hectic, but I'll be honest with you, I'm really loving the experience right now. And as I sit here painting these orcs for the rulebook and to make some videos with them, I'm just feeling like most of the stuff that I've got between now and the Kickstarter going live is just really fun, creative work. I've got to paint some orcs, I've got to paint some vehicles, I've got to shoot some videos, I got to finish the design and writing of the final rulebook tweaks. I've got to make a Kickstarter video, which is going to be hilarious, I've no doubt. And so yeah, it's fun. And you know, if the Kickstarter doesn't go well and I have to go and get a job, then at least I've had this incredible opportunity to do some of the things that I love most and share what I think is going to be a really awesome game with the people who do back it. Another thing that's making the process of preparing for this Space Gits Kickstarter really fun is my new friend Tyler. He has been such an awesome and enthusiastic creative partner over the last 2 months. He's been getting really excited about the game. He's been throwing out some really awesome photography, painting some miniatures, kit bashing some miniatures, and just really kind of getting stuck into the whole game and the whole world. And it's really nice to have such an enthusiastic kind of collaborator, and getting that kind of feedback has really urged me on. And I think there's no question in my mind that the game is both better and more, I don't know, just more authentically what it was supposed to be because of his enthusiasm for my stupid ideas. And so I'm really appreciative of Tyler getting involved and just being really enthusiastic about it. And the images that he's making are going to make the rulebook look incredible. And he's also going to be going to Adepticon, which I can't attend. I didn't have enough money this year to go to Adepticon. Hopefully next year. But he's going to be at Adepticon. He's going to have a load of Space Gits Quick Start flyers, assuming that they arrive in time. They are on their way at the moment. And so he'll be able to tell the people and spread the good word. And he might even be able to shoot some footage that we can include in the Kickstarter video if all goes well. So yeah, that's just been rad. And we've been working on lots of other silly bits and bobs. He's been doing some illustrations. We worked on, what did we do? We worked on a dumb idea that I had, which was, let's make a 40k detachment called Space Gits that uses some of the dexterity mechanics from Space Gits, but ports them into 40k for a fun casual detachment list. And yeah, we've just generally been hanging out and chatting and talking rubbish. That's been great. Tyler's painting videos on YouTube have been quite inspirational to me, so I have been trying to up my game on the painting front. And I finished my first like proper finished Space Gits miniature last week because I needed to put it on the front of the Quick Start guide. And I'm really pleased with that. I think it is the best miniature I have painted for a long time, if not ever. And that's lucky because it's right on the front of the advertising material and needed to do a good job of convincing people that this is an exciting miniatures game. So the fact that the miniature looks good and it looks kind of professionally painted is just really exciting. You're seeing me slapping on contrast paint, which isn't necessarily selling the idea that I'm a highly professional miniature painter, but you know, I'm not. I'm just slapping on some paint and we'll get them looking as good as I can. Most of the miniatures in the rulebook are going to be Tyler's miniatures. But I need to have some here so that I can shoot how to play videos, and in case I need some other bits and bobs for specific diagrams of rules and stuff. Always useful to have some nice painted miniatures on hand. So yeah, all in all, I am ridiculously excited about Space Kits. I think it's going to be the most me game that I have ever made, and I am really looking forward to creating the rulebook and laying it out. Let me show you something. So you can go and download the quick start rules straight away, and what you will see is something that's very green and orange. And the way that I created it, which I think is going to be the way that I create the layout for the main rulebook, is I've been creating these bits of paper, tearing up card, sticking them together and doing some really physical crafty things. Then I've been taking photographs of the stuff that I've made and then manipulating them and laying them out, compositing them in Photoshop and putting the text over the top. So you can see what I mean from this quick start rules. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do when it came to the layouts, because this is my first time laying out a whole rule book. But this, I think, looks cool. It looks really exciting and silly, and it's very handmade. And I think it ends up looking more professional than I was expecting, because it's got all this kind of organic imperfections that looks really high quality, but it's super easy to achieve because I'm doing it here in front of me, and if I need a little element to create a new box, then I can just get a piece of paper that's exactly the size I need, tear it up and take a photo of it and introduce it. So that process of creating the Space Kits rulebook is something that I'm really looking forward to. I've created, and you'll see it if you download the Space Kits beta rulebook, like I've created what I think are roughly the spreads. So I kind of know how the information architecture of the book is going to work. I know which pages are going to have which bits, and which like rule sections probably going to take 2 pages and will be able to be on facing pages. So this is a big learning curve. I will try and video some of the process of me assembling the book. I think the thing I'm most nervous about is I've got the technical specs from the printer, and moving from files that I have made that look visually excellent into a file that can actually be printed by a printer and look good with offset printing. That bit is going to be a fairly big learning experience. So I'll probably get it wrong and have to go through a loop as a possible sort of bit of delay there. So that's, I guess, why I want to get started on the layout before the Kickstarter starts, and then be working on the final parts of the layout and iterating with the printers during the campaign. So my hope is that by the time I get to UK Games Expo in June, that the book will be real, Space Kits will be available to buy, and that will be exciting because I'll actually have 2 new games at UK Games Expo, because I've also got a new Osprey book coming out, which is Pacific Command, my game of World War II carrier combat in the Pacific. That is also going to be available in June. It's an Osprey Blue Book. It's a slightly larger page count because they've upped the Blue Book page count recently. But that is, I think it's a very fun game of bluffing and fog of war. You never know exactly where everyone's ships are, and it's a kind of zoomed out strategic level game. So it's almost not a miniatures game. It's very much a non-discrete game, because you push both miniatures and poker chips around the table and you measure them with tape measures and so forth. But there are some elements that people may say, "Ooh, this is a bit board gamey," as they did with A Billion Suns. So look out for Pacific Command in June from Osprey. Please pick up a copy if you're interested in a very unique game of hide and seek between massive battle groups of fighting ships. And the way that I wrote Pacific Command, you can actually play it without any miniatures at all, just using poker chips. Or indeed, you can use paper flats or anything like that. I painted up and playtested with some 1/6000 scale ships, because I did have some Warlord Victory at Sea ships, but I sold them a couple of years ago. Now, the process of working on Space Kits and the Crawling Chaos Kickstarter has been a little bit intense, so I have taken some time here and there to work on kind of relaxing projects. And one of those has been to keep iterating on Junkspace. And I was hoping because I finished my sprint goals last week. I finished them a few days early and thought, instead of getting a jump on some of the next things for the next sprint, I will give myself 3 days to focus on one project for a while. So I worked on Junkspace for 3 days. I moved it forward and I got some problems with the system solved, but I couldn't quite get it to the point where I was happy to put it into early access yet. So Junkspace remains on the workbench. I did a lot of work on the stats and the activation system and the resolution system, and that kind of cemented some of the way that the game, the kind of principles around how the game functions, and how the pilot and the ship both matter in equal measure. And I started messing around with the building a ship system, but that ended up being a bit too much work for the 3 days that I had boxed out for myself. So yeah, so that's still in process, but not going to be released in the immediate term. What else have I been working on? I have been thinking a lot about Warhammer 40,000, and I've been thinking about, as I have for the last 5 years, what a Hobgoblin 40,000 would look like. I don't have that ready to share yet, but I've got another version of that has been tinkering away in my brain. But the thing is that every time I spend any time on that, I end up having A Billion Suns thoughts, and then remembering that I really ought to be finishing the A Billion Suns playtest draft and getting that out, which hasn't happened yet, but will happen at some point. So yeah, Billion Suns second edition, if you don't know, that is slated for next summer, and so I've got to hand the game in reasonably soon. I have got to get the playtest rules out so that people can actually give me some feedback on it. It's not going to be a major reinvention of the game, but it is going to be a pretty major reframing of the game, so that it's more of a toolkit with lots of different ways to play, so that the sort of I just want to have a space battle mode is easily accessible, without losing access to the I want to have a very tense and kind of thinky economic game, which the people who like A Billion Suns like that part, as I do, but I want to offer a lower barrier version to get into the game. And that, I think, is most everything that I've been working on. I've been playing a bit of the Alien RPG recently. I played some Puke Apocalypse with Glenn. I have been pitching games to people, which I'll talk about if and when they get picked up. Yeah, and so I guess my main hope is that you continue to follow along with the journey here. I hope these aren't the final months of Planet Smasher Games' journey. I hope this is the beginning of the fertile new period where I'm successfully making games and making enough money to feed my children. If you want to help me to feed my children, then the things that you can do are, one, you can go along to the Kickstarter page for Space Gits and you can smash that notify on launch button, and then when it launches you can give me money. I am really excited about Space Gits, and I hope that you will be excited about it too and wants to contribute to making that game a reality. You can download the Space Gits rulebook, the huge new updated 100-page beta version of the rulebook, for a very, very low cost on itch if you go over to planetsmashergames.itch.com, where you'll also find my other early access miniature games. And if you want to get all of my early access miniature games for free, then you can become a Patreon of mine. And if you go over to patreon.com/planetsmashergames and back me at the bronze tier or above, then you can get access to all of the games using the magic links in one of the Patreon posts. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll point you in the direction of the links. If you have been supporting me by doing any of those things, or playing my games and telling other people about my games, then thank you. That is what makes all of this worth it. Seeing photos of people in the Planet Smasher Games Discord, linked below, sharing my games with their friends and family is just the best, and it makes everything worth it, and it's all awesome. I can't wait to share more miniature games with you and hang out with you again. I am going to carry on painting these orcs so that I can get some videos for Space Gits shot. But until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.